I'd like to welcome you to the Tuesday, November 27th Board of Commissioners meeting. It's always good to see our folks here, taking an interest in the way things transpire up here and holding those that you elect responsible. Thank you for being here. We're going to start off with the invocation by Commissioner Barrett, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Barrett.
Okay, everyone bow your heads, please. Dear Lord, we thank you for everything that you do for us. As we come together tonight to do the business of the county, we just ask that you'd watch over, help us make decisions that are best for the county. We thank you for all the citizens that showed up tonight, protect them on their drive back home. And we just ask that you watch over Davidson County, help us prosper, and help us make the decisions that would enable that to happen. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is Mike Christopherson here? Mike, was a representative for Lexington Chamber. Glad to have you tonight, Mike. You know, it's hard sometimes to understand what makes government work, but what makes government work is the dedication of people who care about a community. Tonight will be the last official meeting for two of our fellow commissioners who will be leaving the board. I'm sure I'll speak for most everybody up here. It's been a pleasure and an honor, Commissioner Barrett, Commissioner Yates, to sit and serve with you two guys. I've saw firsthand the dedication that you've had for the citizens of this county, at much sacrifice to yourself as well as your families. And a lot of times we don't think about the families that have to do without these commissioners when they're attending meetings and the many functions and events that they go to in order to interact with the citizens of this county. And it's just been a tremendous pleasure. And with that, I would like to ask Commissioner Yates and Commissioner Barrett if they would step down. Me?
You don't tear up. You need to push you.
You coming back?
Why?
You coming back? No, I'm gonna get the chair.
We'll just follow the directions you wrote down. You will take pictures.
Presented to Lance Barrett, Commissioner, in recognition and appreciation for 4 years of outstanding and dedicated service to Davidson County, Davidson County Board of Commissioners from 2014 to 2018. Davidson County Board of Commissioners is 27th November 2018. Mr. Barrett. Thank you, sir. Presented to Commissioner Todd Yates in recognition and appreciation for 8 years of outstanding dedicated service to Davidson County. Davidson County Board of Commissioners 2010 to 2018. The Davidson County Board of Commissioners is 27th of November of 2018. Thank you, Commissioner Yates.
One, two, three. See one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
4, 5.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
What was you getting done?
I'm gonna go.
I'm gonna bring mine. I got a new laptop.
I forgot my cord and my iPad. I'm in Raleigh all day.
That's my chair. Yes, sir, bud.
When we do recognition, I like to on occasion, let the folks know, the folks that are a huge asset when making things work. To my right is our county attorney, Chuck Fry, our county manager, Zeb Hanner, to my left is Assistant County Manager Casey Smith, and Master Clerk Debbie Harris. We have a Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from the Government Finance Officers Association. Zeb, if you'll.
I'll be glad to take that, sir. Before I start, I would like to say thank you to our outgoing board members for your support over the time that I've been here, even in my little vacation to Archdale. But you guys have done a great job, and I appreciate all you've done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now on to another one. For the fourth year in a row, we have been awarded the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association Budget Award. This award is based off the presentation, and it has certain requirements that it has to meet. Believe me, and Casey got the award. I keep saying he's much smarter than the guy that he replaced. And our philosophy in our office is when we're in a meeting, Casey and I want to be the dumbest guys in the room. And most of the time we are. So, but Casey's won it fourth year in a row. He's done a great job for us. I mean, our budget looks fantastic. Like I say, I started doing the budget back in 2001. When he took it to a whole different level, and it's very impressive. And so, you know, we've got it online and all these dashboards, and, you know, with the help of our department heads and Matt Sutter out there, they do a fantastic job. Like I say, I can't take any credit for it because they do all the work. So, and I'm very appreciative of what they do. So, thanks to Casey. Do we have the award here?
He didn't give it to you.
Oh, I think it's still stuck in there, I think.
It's in the mail.
We got it,
No, he
it's in
got
there.
it.
Casey's got the award. You can see he's not much into awards, but
I think 4 years we ought to give them one hand, right?
Absolutely.
I just want to reiterate what the manager just said about folks helping. It's not just me either. It's department heads, Matt, Jane, everybody gets to play a role in it. You guys ultimately get to play a role in it as well. So it's everybody in this whole organization chips in to do this. And one of the things we want to keep doing with the budget more and more and more, not just the budget, but every bit of our numbers or anything we do around here, is we're always striving for transparency. That's part of what the dashboard was all about. Put all the stuff out online. People can go out and look at it, see what we spend our money on, call us and offer suggestions on what we should continue to spend our money on, those kinds of things. But the other part of it is we strive for out of our office is simplification. You know, it does you guys no good to give you a book this thick and say, oh, by the way, go home and read that in a couple of weeks and come back and tell me what you think about it. Our job is to get it to you in that format, but also give you ways to see it in all different directions as quickly as possible, because you're the decision makers. So we strive for that out of our office all the time. And we even talk through it. What's ways to make this where the average citizen can see this issue, understand it the same way we see it, even though we're looking at it through the minutia. So we're just going to keep getting better and better at that as time goes on.
Thank you, Casey. Okay, our next item is the recognition of the Sheriff's Department members.
yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have with us tonight Corporal Brian Hunt, Sergeant Charles Goforth, and Lieutenant Michael Burns. I think they're all here, aren't they? Sheriff, are they all here?
Michael Burns and Sergeant Goforth are undercover vice officers, because they didn't want to get their appearance put out. Sorry.
All right, that's all right. You know, our guys try very hard to be very professional, and they go out and they do these schools. Corporal Hunt was awarded the Advanced Services Award and the Advanced Deputy Professional Law Enforcement Certificate by the North Carolina Education and Training Standards Commission. The Advanced Deputy Professional Law Enforcement is the highest professional certificate awarded to deputies in the state. Sergeant Goforth was also awarded the Advanced Deputy Professional Law Enforcement certification for his participation in education and training course throughout his career. and Lieutenant Burns received the Advanced Service Awards. He has served in the criminal justice field for over 20 years, and that 20 years of service is what is required to receive this award. And so they had a nice article in the Dispatch, but we always like to recognize our folks for accomplishments. Like I keep saying, it's because of folks like this that this county stays ahead of most other counties in the state, and we're very proud of them. So I think Corporal Hunt is here, right?
No.
He was.
He is here.
Yes, Corporal Hunt is here. He's here.
Yeah, Sheriff, could you bring him up and yeah. Yeah, he's one of the first people I met. He and my dad are probably about the same age, so, Sheriff, you have some things you'd like to say?
Just, honored to, receive this award, and, that former student of mine,
He can stand up in front of us. I mean, he's hiding back. Come on up here.
back there with his family, he had a career at the Lexington Police Department and transitioned over to DMV enforcement, and, he's a inspector at DMV enforcement, and retired from that and came with us 5 years ago. You know, what is it really, 5? Okay, I did good. 5 years, 8 months, and so he's, the combination of his schooling and his years of experience and in-service training, this, advanced certificate is not something that everyone achieves in his career. But we're happy and pleased that he's worked with us all these years, and he's just an asset, just smooth, easy going, does his job, and I don't hear his name except for good things.
Yeah.
Good job.
Wait a minute.
Sheriff, when you say, smooth and easy going, it's hard for me to imagine that. I mean, I can remember when he came to work, when he first got into law enforcement, and his dad has always been a dear friend of mine, his dad and mom both, but, he's a great guy. He's
Manhole cover they raised, the PD one night, roll call, they didn't tell them about that. What, 35 to 0?
yeah.
Come up and be with
Their family's here too.
Yeah. Yeah, come on, family.
Run to the bus, make him get up.
Yeah.
Come on, family.
Don't be bashful.
Did,
We didn't tell him either.
yeah. All right,
Y'all wanna get over it?
back up.
Feel like I'm in church.
That's all right. Y'all don't have to be bashful. We're gonna put it all over Facebook after a while.
One, two, three. More. 1, 2, 3. Good. Thank you.
Sorry, mate. Congratulations, Hey, who it is?
He'd be proud. Okay, please register if you, want to speak at public address, if you know I haven't already done so. Okay. Adoption of the agenda. Due to the expected length of public hearings, I'm requesting that they be moved to follow the consent agenda. Are there any other changes for the agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I would like to add under closed session attorney-client.
Chairman, would you like a motion for the amended
Okay.
agenda?
Got a motion from Commissioner Yates. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Crotts. Cast your vote.
The votes are in. And that motion carries 7-0.
Barney W. Hill.
the next time I sit in my usual seat, there will be 2 new faces staring back at me from up there. A few words about the fellas the voters mercifully liberated from these Tuesday night endurance contests. Some of the best advice I ever received, I received from Don Dublin 8 years ago, recommending to me a candidate then shrouded in mystery. Mr. Yates started slaughtering sacred cows before he was even sworn in. He turned down transportation grants no other commissioner had then or since had the courage to oppose. His downfall was that sports facility in Myrtle Beach. The first time Mr. Barrett filed, he announced that he would govern in the style of Potts and McClure. I thought to myself, that's going to be an easy one to write off. But he was pleasantly unpredictable, and his explanations were always the most thoughtful. He also didn't mind antagonizing the crowd. He seemed to delight in it. If I had voted for an incumbent in this year's primary, he would have been the one.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Are there any items to remove, from the consent agenda for discussion? If not, can I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Motion approved of consent.
Commissioner Crook, a motion?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Krotz. Cast your vote.
Oh, you need my vote?
And that motion carries 7-0.
Oh, this is why he's here. Zip, calling you on the, badge and service weapon, the
Yes,
retiring
sir.
officers.
It's a point where we've got 3 officers here who served this county faithfully for, I'd hate to think of all the years of service combined between all 3 of them. They've done a fantastic job, and they've served the citizens of this county faithfully and well. And at this time, we would like to award them their badge and service weapon. That's Major, I didn't see him, I saw Major Whitman, Major Steve Hedrick, Lieutenant J.L. Shusky, and Major Terry Whitman. And I'd ask
Commissioner Shusky, Officer Shusky and Whitman are here. Is Steve here?
I don't know whether Major Hedrick was coming this evening, but I knew that Officer Shusky and Whitman were coming.
Okay, neat.
And like I say, we'd like to recognize them at this time.
Step up. Man, these guys just tell me how old I'm getting. I'm gonna tell you what's true. Now, here they're up retiring. I can remember when he came in. I mean, you guys passed me. I'm not that old.
Well, I will say that
Yeah, I just don't admit it.
Major Whitman was taught by my dad, if there's a free meal in the house, he can sniff it out. I can tell you that.
Hey, he can't carry the tray for his brother.
So, but these guys have done a great job, and I'm very thankful for what you've done for this county. So if you guys would like to say some things, feel free.
Commissioner Crutch, start your end.
I know, we used to award the badge and, service weapons on a consent agenda. And I actually asked the clerk to bring it off and put it, in something that we vote on. Because I feel that it's very important to, if you want to come, but to give you that opportunity to come before this board and thank you for your service. And I mean that from the deepest part of me. I've always supported law enforcement, and y'all have a very difficult job, and your families are ultimately so important, because when you leave that morning or that afternoon, whatever shift you're on to go to work, they don't know if you're coming home. And so for me and my friends and my family, and I think I speak for most all the citizens in our county, we cannot thank you enough for keeping our streets safe and doing what you do, and for that I thank you.
You know, I'd like to just say a few words, and Sheriff and myself were talking just a little while ago, and I can go back 3 or 4 different administrations, and I've known a lot of good deputy sheriffs over the years, going back all to Fred Sink, several administrations. And I can't think of any, thinking back, I can't think of any officers that I would rather have working for me than you guys. Y'all have done an excellent job. The sheriff's done an excellent job with this department, and we're gonna miss you, really are, and wish you luck in your retirement.
I just want to say thank you for your service. I appreciate what y'all do. It's a thankless job. Law enforcement has become a thankless job. Me and Terry talked about that just earlier this afternoon. But thank you very much, and I want to shake your hand, tell you how much I appreciate it. And I'm going to join y'all in retirement too, so we're going to have fun, okay?
Well, Terry and Jamie, you know, we go back a long way. I served with your brother back in the 70s, and it was a good time to be a law enforcement officer back then. The challenges that law enforcement officers today face, especially in the eye of the public, and I mean, we live in a time of keyboard warriors. Let's just be honest about it. And you're constantly under a microscope, and people oftentimes forget that the professionalism that you exhibit does not hide the fact that you're still a human being, and decisions you have to make on an instant. An attorney can take 6 months to rip it apart. And so most people in our community recognize that, and most people in our community appreciate the jobs that law enforcement officers do across, not only in Davidson County, but across this nation. And I don't want you to retire not feeling that respect and that caring that the public really has for you guys. And it's been a privilege to be your friend, and we're going to continue. In fact, I got a little car work I want to talk to you about there, Whitman, when you get a chance. But thank you for your service, Commissioner.
I'd just like to say thanks. I don't go back that far. I'm still a young fellow up here.
I got tenure.
But it's really been a pleasure. You know, the legacy is the folks that you have taught, and the folks that you have impacted with your lives, your example, and your leadership. And it's hard to replace leaders, and you will be sorely missed. I know that I've been here through a couple of different sheriffs, and I can certainly say that you folks have made the sheriff's department, regardless of who was sheriff, because it's the deputies on the line, it's the folks that's leading the deputies on the line that make all the difference in the world. You have my gratitude, and I'm sure my family's gratitude for all that you do, and I just want to say thank you.
Well, I'd just like to reiterate the thanks, and just thank so much of law enforcement in this day and time. Anybody that's willing to step up and be a law enforcement officer whenever they get disrespected. I've never seen either one of these guys act out of the way in any time throughout the time that they've been in service. I go back to Terry Whitman. I remember whenever he used to be the purchasing agent, and I found out he's got a little bit of me in him. He likes to be tight too, and he did a good job trying to save money for the sheriff department. So we thank you, and thank you both for your service.
I'd like to reiterate everything's been said tonight. I've known both of you for a pretty good while, and I think it's a testament when you're well-known and well-respected in your communities. For as long as I've known them, I've known Terry, you know, his family's from up just above Welcome on Tall Pines, And of course, James Shusky, everyone know you're down around Emmons, every time an election comes around or something comes around, we know you're Tall Pines, you're Emmons. Knowing you all these years, your families are well respected in those areas. Just want to thank you for your service. It's not often that guys retire and leave that's been in it for as long as y'all have. We appreciate your service.
Yes, Sheriff, I was gonna call you up.
I'd like to also include Casey Carlton, Major Casey Carlton in this group. He's not retiring. He's leaving the sheriff's office, but I know the choice of his own, so come up here, Casey. Casey, between the four of these guys, got 116 years of service. Between Major Hedrick and Major Whitman, Chief Deputy Whitman, Major, Carlton, Lieutenant Shusky. These guys started out at the jail. Terry worked at the Lexington Police Department, came sheriff's office, worked in the jail, worked his way up. Casey started in the jail, worked his way up. Patrol, detectives, personnel, patrol captain, major of a criminal division, detectives and patrol. Lieutenant Shusky started out, came to us from the Marines, Marine drill instructor, came to the sheriff's office. Weapons instructor too. These two are, Lieutenant Chester and Major Kaufman are armorers in addition to everything else. They take care of guns, SWAT commander, firearms instructor, purchasing agent, and so we're losing a lot of good work here, a lot of good service here. We do appreciate y'all's support over the years, and you've been very supportive of the sheriff's office during my tenure, and I appreciate all your help.
Well, Sheriff, I'm sure that the comments and the statements that were made up here by my fellow commissioners was directed at you as well, and to you, Casey. And I would appreciate if you guys would line up right here, and Debbie, if you'd get a picture with the commissioner.
I can give you my dollar yet on mine.
You wanted to be recorded there on camera, didn't you?
Wait a minute, can I check this?
One, two, three. One,
Four, five.
2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
We want to get a smile, we always gotta get it.
Appreciate it, Casey. Thank you.
Okay. No, I'm gonna look at it. Oh,
Okay, we've got a resolution in support of the Piedmont Legacy Trail.
Good evening. Here this evening to request the adoption of a resolution of support for the Piedmont Legacy Trails. The Piedmont Legacy Trails is a planning committee that was assembled by the Piedmont Triad Regional Council. It's it's 12 county region, representatives from all 12 counties to get together to plan marketing to help promote trails throughout that region. The adoption of this resolution of support will put us on a platform of a regional marketing to support and assist with our tourism efforts and help to promote the trails that we are developing in our county parks.
here's what you get here now when you get over
Okay.
there.
You guys have any questions?
Like this, then you gotta hear what you.
Whereas Davidson County is committed to enhancing the quality of life for its citizens and recognizing that supporting Piedmont Legacy Trails will help create a regional network of trails, including greenways and blueways, and whereas trails provide key amenities to neighborhoods and safe areas for our citizens and children to travel, exercise, play, and connect with nature and communities, and whereas trails have significant impact on the economic viability of the region through increased tourism, enhanced property values, as well as the ability to attract and retain businesses to the region due to improved quality of life, and whereas committing to this resolution may help leverage funding from federal, state, local, and private sources for trails, and Whereas Piedmont Legacy Trails is coordinated by Piedmont Land Conservancy, which is dedicated to preserving important natural areas, and Piedmont Triad Regional Council, which is a regional planning organization. Now therefore be it resolved that Davidson County supports Piedmont Legacy Trails in partnership with neighboring communities to implement a system of regional trails that connects our communities, people, and regional points of interest for years to come. Adopted this 27th of November 2018. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner, McClure, and a second by Commissioner Jarvis. Cast your vote.
All of the votes are in, and the motion carries 7-0. Chris, you've got the proclamation resolution for you.
Don't run off.
I'm sorry.
One, two, three.
I like safety. We got any more pictures?
Mr. Chairman, before we move forward though, could we go back and take a vote on the, award of the badge and the service weapon?
Oh, yes.
Did they already take it out?
Or they did.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we got a motion by
I'll
Commissioner
second.
McClure, second by Commissioner Yates. Cast your vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I believe, Chris Elliott was gonna be here today, but he has been in a wreck up in, Rockingham County, and his smart car, his wife's on the way to the hospital now.
Oh, well, our prayers are with them. Hate to hear this news like that.
Somebody's trying to call me right now.
All of
Okay.
the votes are in, and that motion also carries 7-0.
Okay, next topic is, the NCACC voting delegate legislative goals conference. Zeb?
Yes, sir. On January 10th and 11th, the Legislative Goals Conference will be held by, the NCACC. Our board needs to designate a commissioner as voting delegate for this conference. So I'll put it on the floor at this time for y'all to decide who you want to choose as the voting delegate.
Okay, I guess first order, who's interested?
Who would be attending?
I will.
Fred, Commissioner McClure? If there's no other, I'll submit
I appoint.
and recommend Commissioner McClure.
Well, thank you.
Does that require a vote?
It's hard fought amongst all the competition, but I'll accept it.
Oral or?
We can do verbal, that would be fine.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think you're going, Fred.
I think so.
Can we appoint the alternate, Fred McClure?
Okay, got a public hearing, updated emergency management ordinance. I declare the public hearing open. Alton Haynes, if you want to give us a little background on this.
Fellow commissioners, we met maybe a month or so back, and we discussed kind of cleaning up our emergency management ordinance, dropping some old legislation out of that, as well as we talked about what we call the sunset policy, where our state of emergency would terminate at the end of 3 days. So we was gonna go ahead and clean that up and do away with that, so that when we issued, or when the chairman would issue a state of emergency, it would be in place until at such time we deemed for him it would be okay to pull that back. Also, in addition to that, there was one of the prohibitions that we had put back in addressing the sale of gasoline or fuel, and we cleaned up the wording on some of the stuff the state had, so it only addresses commercial sales and not sales from private party to private party, such as homeowners and that sort of thing.
Okay, anybody have any questions out on this? Looks like it's just little housekeeping that needs to be done, catch it up.
So there's no way that you would include commercial to be any type farmer, chicken farmer, any farmer of
Don't
any
think we
sort,
would. That's-
even though they do consider that a commercial?
That's not the intent of it, so I think the wording of that is mainly addressing to such as station, you know, like gas stations and that sort of thing. We're not addressing the farms and stuff like that. Chuck, could you?
I think that was the intent in putting this language together. We heard what the board was saying when we brought this before the board last time.
I just want to make sure, because I know sometimes they consider like chicken farm and different type farm, and it is a commercial entity. However, it is still farms.
Right.
So, I don't know if commercial could in some future time be interpreted, you know, in a different regime with different people. May not, you know, we may understand what it's saying here today,
Right.
but could it ever be interpreted differently?
We might be able to change it. We've changed it beforehand, well.
Let me ask,
And also with that, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I just wanna ask for clarification. When, in what capacity do you think it could possibly affect those farms?
If, just if anybody ever says commercial entity, even though a farm, there's a lot of farms that are like large chicken farmers, they are a commercial entity. You take like even, we don't have a big hog farm,
your
but-
concern falls on the distribution end of it probably then, would it? As to how you how they may disperse of it?
Mhm.
Okay.
You could limit that, and that's
Okay.
C, 3106 C.
Okay.
Well, I know there's some, one constituent in the county that's wanting to argue over ferret farms and how we deal with those, so.
The only ones I've seen blown up is when they try to deep fry them on Thanksgiving Day, so. Other than that, they're all right.
But along with that, Commissioner Jarvis, I was gonna add that this is one of the prohibitions, and we don't necessarily, I don't know we've ever enacted any of the prohibitions with our state of emergency. Not to say
And
that
I
it won't
understand
happen,
it says
but
may.
it can.
I
But
understand it
it
says
can
may.
happen, though.
Is there a wording that could be added to that sentence that would possibly limit it to just
Well,
the dual distributors?
and Commissioner Jarvis, what I read in this was the chairman has the authority to do this, but then the board can meet and remove that authority, or remove so I think if something like that did happen, I think, yeah,
20 years from now, who knows?
yeah.
I'll know.
You're still gonna be here, right?
That's right.
I think if you got an emergency this bad, you're gonna have to be meeting anyhow.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's pretty bad when you got a ration in the fuel and there's gonna be other people. What are you gonna do with hospitals? That's a commercial, nonprofit type business. I mean, you could have all kind of stuff, so I think there would definitely be a meeting there.
It's interesting in some of the emergency management training classes that I've been through when I go, to like to NACO. It says, these are actual cases. They say that the first thing that they try to do is get the Walmart open so that people can get supplies.
Walmart, Lowe's.
They don't think about that, but.
You can always judge by what the, Waffle House is doing also.
There you go.
They actually had a conference where they talked about that. If the Waffle House is open, we're good.
All your changes
Well,
here
what-
is in red, aren't they?
Hmm?
All the changes are in red.
No, you good, you
It
good.
doesn't appear on Provox, so I printed it off for y'all, so you can see what the changes were.
Mr. Attorney, would there be better language?
I don't think you want to change the language under C because you're talking about the sale by commercial enterprises. What I hear from your proposal, Mr. Jarvis, is that you would not restrict or limit the sale to farming or agricultural.
So what about the distribution? You missed that.
Yes, sir. But what I was trying to say was that you are not, I don't think you want to change
So what if we remove distribution?
No, sir. I think you want to keep that sentence the way it is. I think, however, if you want to carve out an exception, that exception would be that you would not be able to limit the sale and or distribution to farming or agricultural entities.
I would be good with that.
If that is where the board wants to go.
Pleasure of the board.
I think most of them would be considered agriculture anyhow,
Yeah.
wouldn't
Well, it
they?
says.
I mean, I understand they are a business, but
Commercial.
they're still agriculture though, they're growing.
But we don't have anything in here addressing agriculture. Unless
Either
we
way.
add,
I'm not seeing, which one are you talking about?
It's like C,
3106 dash C.
like I say, I think if you get to this point, you're gonna have the federal government and everybody in here with this kind of emergency that they'll be dictating who buys what and who gets what, so I don't see a big deal.
Well, it just says declaration may restrict
Right.
and regulate, so it may not
May
too.
not, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if you're ready for a motion, I would make a motion. Go ahead.
Can I ask a couple things here? In 31.11, the very beginning, at that last sentence, proclamation is amended or rescinded in the same manner in which it was issued. But on 31.09, the first one, it says that it will go in effect, any and all prohibitions and restrictions when the emergency no longer requires them, or when directed so by the Board of Commissioners. So if the chairperson is directed by the Board of Commissioners to rescind it, would that work, or would you have to change 31.11 to state that?
I think it works.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, one last thing, and then I'll be done. Right here in 31.12, it says, the vice chairperson of the Board of Commissioners, and after that, followed by the county commissioners in succession based on their longevity. Is that concurrent longevity or total longevity? Such as a member leaving and then coming back on the board, does that start their time back over?
Since it just says longevity, it seems to me it would be their total
Okay.
period of service. This is sort of like the designated survivor type rule.
Yeah.
You have to be way down the line to ever reach this, but
I know we would be in some deep trouble.
yes.
But I figured since we were asking that,
Yes.
so I didn't know if that needed to be altered. Other than that, I'm fine.
Does that, one he said, does that take care of your concern?
I would like to make a motion that we approve it with the amended language that the lawyer has recommended.
Yeah, but you got a public hearing,
We're still in the public.
Still in public hearing, okay.
Well,
I'm sorry.
we're through the rest of it now.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Chuck, can you see any negatives to what the suggestion would be after we had a public hearing?
This board and the chairman of the board have been extremely reluctant to adopt any restrictions or prohibitions. And I'm thinking back over the last 10 years, I think there have been 3 or perhaps 4 occasions in which we have declared a state of emergency. And it has always been done for a very limited geographical area, for a very limited time period, and for a very limited purpose. I can only think of one time when we actually spoke to restrictions, and that was when the sheriff was having some sightseers going through an area that a tornado had set down, and we were trying to keep people out of there for a period of time. And so it's hard for me to imagine the severity of a disaster that we would have to have in order to speak to each of these. I can appreciate your concern with that. In talking with Alton, as we looked at asking for this prohibition to be reinstated, it's one that we thought we were unlikely to ever have need for, but yet at the same time, in light of the recent experiences with Florence and Michael, and in his talking with some of his colleagues elsewhere in the state, thought that, well, if we have it there, if it's in the toolbox, then it might be used. If I could be so bold as to suggest, Mr. Jarvis, in response to your inquiry, perhaps the language that if the board wanted to adopt it would be to add it as an additional sentence at the end of subsection C. This declaration may not restrict, regulate, or limit the sale and/or distribution of gasoline and/or diesel fuel to farming or agricultural entities.
You still have the word may.
May not, is what I said.
May not.
May not.
It
yes. May not restrict, regulate, or limit. So in the first sentence.
Would it not be better to be should not or will not? Will not?
Well, I'm trying to track the language that is in that first sentence there.
To me, I think if it's may not, however it may.
I would leave that with you, sir.
The only problem that I would have with putting shall not would be the fact that it seems like the purpose of this statute and of this ordinance would be if we have an emergency situation with first responders and we have a limitation as to our accessibility to fuel, I'm going to take it from wherever I can get it if it's going to save somebody's life versus, and so I'm not so sure we should put shall because that tells us you can't do that, period. And if you have to have it, you got to have a tool there by which that you can affect it. And I'm sort of leaning. I lean to the fact that I can't foresee this ever becoming a problem. I understand what your thing is, but if we start, we can't take our tools away.
Well, we've never had the tool.
That's right.
So
you're right.
We've got more even with having that restriction.
But what if you ever had a situation, regardless of who's chairman or whatever, the process is where it goes for the board. It's just, what if you ever had a situation that you had to deal with? I'm at the coast Saturday, and two roofs blow off two blocks over. I wasn't planning for that. They wasn't calling for it. We never know what we're going to be struck with, and if we don't have the tools to address it, I don't know how we're going to create them right in the middle of an emergency. It seems like to me that in this situation, Commissioner Jarvis, that I'd be sort of, I believe it would handcuff us if we said shall, because it forces us to do it, and it may be at the expense of something that's far more prioritized at that time.
I don't see how that would be the case with as many hundreds of thousands of gallons of fuel that would be in commercial.
Well, that's true, but that same argument could be used in counters.
You can use it both ways. We haven't had it up until this point. So why go into the point to where all of a sudden they can come in and take any man's personal fuel to keep him alive?
Where are you reading that they can take the fuel?
In 31.06/C.
/C.
Yes. Item C.
And what exactly does the wordage that you want added, how does it change that?
I was fine with the way the legal counsel gave the first rendition of an addition to that sentence.
I mean, how does it change that sentence, is that, I guess what I'm saying?
Mr. Attorney, could you go back to your original
What
and
is
let me
it
know
saying,
what it changes?
that you could not restrict it to farms, is that what you're saying?
Farms and personal use.
See, to me personally, agriculture wouldn't even be listed in that because it's agriculture, you know, I mean, a chicken farm is agriculture.
If you don't list agriculture, it can be a commercial entity.
It can't be commercial, it's
It
agriculture.
can. Agriculture is commercial.
Agriculture.
We have commercial agriculture business every day. Agriculture is one of the largest industries in North Carolina.
So if you got a chicken farm, you're not a farmer? You're not a
I never
agriculture
said
farm.
you're not a farmer, but it's still considered a commercial.
Yeah.
But to go back to the thing, what, and I'm not a chicken farmer.
How about if you got an egg farm?
Yeah.
I'm not an egg farmer. It says it may limit the sale or distribution of gasoline or diesel fuel. At what point in time do you think that a farm is gonna be selling their gasoline or their fuel oil?
Distribution.
Well, where would they be distributing it to? I mean, they may be putting it on their own farm, but that's not what they're talking about.
They might be giving it to their neighbors. They may have elderly parents. They're distributing it.
I don't know.
I don't think that was the intent of this
I
one.
understand that's not the intent. I
But-
totally understand that.
And I think we were looking more at driving down Main Street here, what gas stations might be open, might have lines, might create challenges, that sort of thing. I don't think it's looking for commercial entities transferring gasoline to their neighbor.
However, the wording could be taken to that level if someone so chose.
Well,
Legally.
It's preceded by the word sale and slash or.
Or distribution.
Yeah.
And the way I read
and/or.
it, it says may, okay? So you may restrict Steve's business.
That's right.
And you may
Anyone
not
may or
restrict
may
my
not.
business, you
But
know,
anytime
because-
it's may, it may or it may not.
I agree, may or may not, but like I say, that's a choice that's going to have to be dealt with this is gonna have to be a catastrophe for this to ever take place. Back, we voted against this
We
a long
took
time
it
ago.
completely out.
Right.
I'd be more willing to take it completely out. I'm willing to completely strike it.
Well,
I mean,
like
I'm
say,
willing to leave it and put it in if we make some concession.
in the past, I voted against it, period, but now looking at it now, knowing with more experience, sitting up here on the board, that this would take a catastrophe for this to ever happen. And when that happens, there's gonna have to be the board or either the state government or the federal government's gonna have to be involved in this, cause it's gonna be way bigger than our emergency management, and y'all do a great job. And us, I mean, that's gonna have to be one heck of a catastrophe for this to happen, so now I don't see it as a big a deal since it says may or may not, but that's just my thinking now,
That's you. I understand.
Just to lay it out there
Since this is a public hearing, won't we hear from the rest of it?
where's the public.
I think Barney probably wants to speak on this.
Okay, Alton, that's pretty much what you got right now?
They're as
Okay.
confused as everybody else.
All right, is there anyone to speak either in favor of or opposition to these changes to the ordinance? Barney W. Hill?
You have to think about, you put this down on paper, it will be construed by people who don't have your mindset in an atmosphere that we can't envision now. I agree with deleting the incorrect statutory reference from subsection B of section 31.01. But I would not have restored subsection C to section 31.06, nor would I have restored the reference to gasoline in the title of that section. I would have restored to section 31.11, the 3-day sunset. I won't keep the government on a short leash. And you're the government and you don't want to be there. But I fear that if you or your successors become too comfortable with the ordinance, emergencies will proliferate. And I would like to know, in the most recent emergency, if anybody knows how many times this document was consulted.
Chuck?
Sir.
The last time, didn't we renew this thing, 3 times? Renew the order?
Madam Clerk, I need your help. I'm thinking twice.
In Florence, I think we did 3 times. In Michael, I think that we let it sunset after the 3 days because the immediate threat was over. But during Florence, we did renew it, I believe, 3 times.
But then in 2014, during the ice storms, we renewed it how many times?
Several times to get all the debris and everything off the road.
Right.
It's like,
Mr. Crotch, you may recall that I shared with the board the first time that we spoke that I think we are unique in the state. I don't think there is any county or municipality that had a sunset provision such as we previously had.
Well, and I kind of knew the answer to that, but I was wanting to clarify that for Mr. Hill so that he understands why we're putting that back in there, because when y'all have to redo that, you have to find the chairperson, go get his or her signature, and then you have to get it back, scan it in, get it into all the mass communication. Whereas if our power and everything's down, it really prohibits the ability to do that. So somebody may assume that it's already gone away.
Well, not only that, but during Florence, we had to make arrangements with the clerk of court to get into the magistrate's office, to get into the courthouse, to do all kinds of things over the weekend, because that's where the 3-day period hit.
That's right. So if we do it this way, it allows us to get everything cleaned up, work on everything, and then we can rescind it immediately. Yeah.
Language that is proposed in this copy of the declaration under section 31.11, termination of declaration, that makes it consistent with the language that is in chapter 166A of the general statutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we were clear as to why. It's not the government trying to overstep, it's trying to keep everybody from having to work harder when we can focus on what we need to do.
Okay, anybody wish to speak either in favor of or against? If not, I close the public hearing. If there's, well, before I do that, or is there any other questions or further discussion by the board on this?
Steve, I can go with the agriculture if you wanna put that in there. To me, I don't really think it's necessary, but if you wanna put it in there, I'm good with it, the agriculture part. But I'm like Steve, I don't want to say shall not, because you never know when you may need the farmer's fuel for something else. I hope we never get to that point, but I wouldn't never want that shall not to be in there. Because again, if you're looking at worst case scenario, I mean, I don't know what's much more important than growing our food, but they may be something we hadn't thought about, you know, so that's my opinion.
And you said a while ago that you were satisfied with the first reading by the attorney, and in that reading it said may.
Can you go back to the first rendition of the addition to this sentence?
Yes, sir. And after I do that, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The way I had initially read it was to track the language that appears under subsection C now. The declaration may not restrict, regulate, or limit the sale and or distribution of gasoline and or fuel, diesel fuel to farming or agricultural entities.
That is the second sentence. Was that not the second rendition? I thought first you had it just added in the first sentence.
No, sir, I was trying to leave the first sentence alone and to make a second sentence that drew out an exception for farming or agricultural entities.
Okay.
And that's a may or may not? Is that
May
what I heard?
not. May not.
Was that not your second rendition?
I'm sorry, sir. I thought that was what I had all along.
Okay. I may have misheard what I thought, because I thought you had a first one.
Forgive me. What I'm trying to do here is to leave subsection C alone and then to add a second sentence there that would speak to the farming or agricultural entities. It would track for the first 80% of that sentence, that same language, and then, but then add by farming or agricultural entities, and of course, at the very beginning, it would say, may not restrict.
Right, and I remember that's what you said the second time. I thought first you read in addition to this sentence, you had something, and then you came back and you said that you had changed, you wanted a separate sentence.
Yes, sir. Does that follow your intent?
I think it'll work.
May I ask for a point of clarification?
Yes.
This is what I thought was initially your intent. However, during the discussion about this, you suggested that there was also concern not of sale to farming or agricultural entities, but distribution by those entities.
That's correct.
Okay. So I think it probably needs to be altered or amended from what I just read, and where I said the distribution of gasoline and or diesel fuel, and where I had said to farming or agricultural entities, I think it probably says to or by farming or agricultural entities.
Okay.
And with the chairman's permission, I'll try to read that again.
Yes, please.
And I'm going to read it in its entirety as subsection C will appear. As you see in red in front of you now, the declaration may restrict, regulate, or limit the sale and or distribution of gasoline and or diesel fuel by commercial enterprises. The declaration may not restrict, regulate, or limit the sale and or distribution of gasoline and or diesel fuel to or by farming or agricultural entities.
I will accept that compromise.
Now I got a question. You had a farmer selling their gasoline to individuals?
I don't think that was the concern.
Well, I think that's what you just said. I mean, when you just said you're not gonna prevent them, they're gonna have the only gasoline that's for sale.
Yes, sir. The way that it's read there, that would be allowed. Yes, sir.
Well, then you also get into the ferret farm person.
I mean,
you're opening up a whole bunch of can of worms there.
The gas crisis that we had once before. 73. And the people who had the gas had the power. And what I'm not saying that the farm shouldn't have the gas, but I don't see anything in section C that says we're gonna take the gas from the farmer. All I see in there is it prohibits the farmer, just like it does the commercial enterprises for distributing. And I can't see a farm selling their gasoline, selling their diesel, or distributing it to anybody. And if we put that other in there, and they're the only ones around that's got gas, it's just like a food shortage. If you're the only one in the neighborhood that's got food, you better have good lots.
I'll be more than glad just to completely remove C altogether.
No.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Have spent some time on this, that's for sure.
Okay, hereby close the public hearing. Do we have a motion, and a second to approve the changes to the emergency management ordinance as written?
So moved.
Is that with the change
Say
from?
Did you say as written?
As written.
As written, as it is right here.
Okay, I've got a motion by Commissioner Crotts. Do we have a second? If not,
I'll second it for the sake of any other discussion.
okay, got a motion by, a second by Commissioner McClure. Cast your vote.
Is this gotta pass unanimous?
Yes.
If it doesn't pass unanimously, it will have to be put on the next agenda for a second reading,
December 11th.
December the 11th.
I'm gonna let y'all have fun on the 11th.
Why not?
All of the votes are in,
Same here, Todd.
and the motion carries 4-3, so it will be placed back on the agenda for November the 11th, or I'm sorry, December the 11th.
Sorry, Alton, you gotta come back on the 11th.
Can't do with or without your vote.
Merry Christmas going to fly by, didn't you?
That's gonna be worth coming back just to watch.
Casey, that blows my 15 minutes.
Okay,
Well, we had to be here anyway on the 11th, so.
okay. Does anybody, we got a couple here, anybody need a 5-minute break?
No,
No?
I'm ready to go.
All right, anybody? Okay. Rezoning request by Hubbard Realty of Winston-Salem, Inc. in Arcadia Township containing 15.71 acres from RA3 to MXR. I declare the public hearing open. Guy?
Mr. Chairman, this, item was actually tabled from your November the 13th, hearing. The, developer, Hubbard Realty of Winston-Salem, wanted to amend its ordinance to include an additional, 15 acres, and so the, total amount of acreage to be included. Let's see.
It is 30.58.
30.58, thank you. So, you do have a request by Hubbard Realty of Winston-Salem Incorporated to rezone, 30.54, is that right?
30.58.
58 acres more or less in Arcadia Township, tax map 2, lot 10G. The property is located on the north side of Central Road, approximately 0.23 of a mile west of the Twin Valley Drive intersection. The rezoning is requested to change again from RA3 Rural Agricultural District to that of MXR Mixed Use Residential District. And the area originally included lot 10G, but what they've added is shown there in blue, which is basically property along Fry's Creek that is almost entirely in floodplain, as you can see from the shaded blue area there. And this area will remain as common area. It won't be used for any development.
I think when you said it's shaded in blue, it's actually lot 13A.
13A, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
Right, and so the whole corridor that is lined in blue is within the floodplain, but it's only 13A that is included with 10G as part of the area that's being considered for rezoning.
That is correct.
Mr. Corman?
Yes, sir.
10G, are we considering that today along with 13A?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
And it's only 21 lots is what's gonna actually be developed. And those
How many
lots,
acres is 10G?
See, 10G, I think was
0.71.
1571.
Okay, so they're almost 1 acre lots. Okay. Yeah, well, close, yeah.
Mr. Leonard wanted
Yeah,
to
I
try
saw
to,
the end ones, yeah.
bring this into more focus for you guys, so, he's gonna kinda give you a little historical.
The board, I apologize. This is a little unusual situation, and I wanted to explain it a little bit from a historical basis, because I didn't want, anytime you see MXR, you're immediately thinking of a couple of weeks ago when we had the 400 unit one on Hagee Road, and this is far different. And because of its history is the reason we're here tonight. We'll take you back to 1980. In 1980, a man by the name of Joseph Fischel passed away, and in his will and testament, he gave his executor the right to sell this tract of land, about 15 acres right here that you see in green, to sell it to whomever he chose to do. And he sold it half interest to a company called McGuire Construction, and the other half interest to Hubbard Realty. That was back in 1980. Well, 37 years later, Hubbard came in and purchased this 15 acres of land, and he wanted to do just a typical regular subdivision of 21 lots, each meeting the required minimum lot size for Davidson County, and hook on to the public sewer line that the county has on Millers Creek. When he came to the planning board back in 2017, he received preliminary approval for the 21 lots, and I'll show you that right there. That was for 20 lots, I should say, back then, for this particular 15 acres on public sewer, and the planning board granted approval for preliminary plat approval, which gave him the permission to develop this property into 20 lots. The county commissioners in July of 17, on the consent agenda, approved the sewer allocation for the 21 lots, because during that time, the engineer, once the planning board gave approval for the development to occur, the engineer went back, and as they were designing this, he read in our zoning ordinance where when you have public sewer, you can go down to 15,000 square feet lots. He did not read the watershed protection ordinance, which required 20,000 even with sewer and the watershed. So on his own, the engineer decided to add another lot, the 21st lot. And by doing so, about 4 or 5 lots here along Gracie Lane dropped down below 20,000 square feet. They sent this back to me at the planning department for addressing. I went ahead and addressed the 21 lots, failing to make sure that all the lots had not changed. I missed it totally, that these lots had dropped under the 20,000 square feet, and I gave them addresses. So they continued in the development part of this. So when they came back for final approval a year later, this summer, they came back with 21 lots, final approval, roads built, sewer taps, water meters, everything done. 5 or 6 of these lots not meeting the minimum square footage. So that's when I panicked. And I got with the developer and said, we've got a problem. I can't approve this. The planning board can't approve this. But we did realize that under the MXR district, this property met the qualifications to apply for it by having at least 10 acres and having access to public sewer. You can apply for an MXR. The benefit of the MXR is it has no minimum lot size requirement. It just means that your overall density has to maintain itself, that you have to have at least, you can have at least one dwelling per half acre over the course of the 15 acres. So they still met that. That's why they are asking the board to approve the rezoning of MXR so that they can continue with the 21 lots that they have created with their infrastructure. What delayed it a couple of weeks is that they were going to have the 10% common area that is required hugging the back of these 3 or 4 lots and use that as the common area. But Hubbard realized and remembered that 40 years ago, they took ownership of this large tract, which was basically useless property for development. It was all floodplain and sewer easement. So it was a perfect opportunity, and he reached McGuire, who was willing to give him his ownership half. So Hubbard then decided, let's add what we've owned for so long, let's add it to what we're doing. So now this whole MXR district would increase to 30 acres, 30.58. We would take care of this and give it to our homeowners association that we're going to establish. It can never be developed. But then what we as a staff had to do, which caused the delay, is we had to notify 51 additional property owners around this entire property. And we did that in the last 2 weeks. We received 1 call, and someone may be here tonight, I'm not sure. But that's the reason for the delay, and that's the reason for the awkward-looking property here. As far as its MXR designation, we have Fern Hill, which the board approved as a PDH, which is the equivalent of an MXR back in 2006. And then Friedberg Village up here was in around 2006 or 7, as well as a PDH, and this is contiguous to that as well. So the staff certainly feels that it's legally justified, not only in its location along a major collector road of Central, but also in its proximity adjoining an existing MXR or / PDH property. That's the history of what brought us here. If the board approves this request, they can go ahead and put this on record and start selling lots. If the board denies this request, they will have to go back and lose one of those lots and resort back to the original 20-lot subdivision that they got preliminary approval early on. The planning board has received this request for MXR and recommended approval. Be glad to answer any question. Brad Code, the surveyor representing Hubbard Realty, is here. He may want to add something that I've left off. We're here at your disposal for any questions you may have.
This was explained to the planning board also about.
Yes.
I'll be very brief. Scott did an excellent job of giving you history and how we got where we are. I draw site plans and bring them here, get them approved. I give them to a civil engineer. I use several different civil engineers. This particular civil engineer tried to do a good thing and reread the ordinance behind me and picked up a lot for our mutual client. I didn't re-review the construction drawings. Scott didn't catch it when he did the addressing. So that extra lot, the sewer taps are in, the water meters are in. Jerry, Davidson Sewer's happy with the construction, signed off on everything. The pads are built. It's gonna be a real bind for him if we don't do this rezoning. So for that reason, I respectfully request that you do approve this. It has been approved unanimously by the planning board. I will make one other comment that I did not plan to make, but as I was here tonight, this guy from Piedmont Trails showed up and got an award and a recommendation for adopting a policy. This is an ideal situation for something like that. When we get a tract like this that follows a sewer outfall, the sewer outfall is maintained by the county and HOA takes it over. That's a perfect situation for the future for having a recreational corridor or trail connection down these sewer outfalls.
Yeah, and
So this rezone is consistent with something we've already done here tonight. It's to create an opportunity.
I would tell the board that is already identified on the county's master greenway plan as a trail corridor.
Mm-hmm.
So I will speak for Mr. Hubbard, who will control the HOA until the preponderance of the lots are sold, that we will be glad to go ahead and enter into, anytime subsequent to tonight's rezoning, an agreement with them for a future, be glad to put that on the plat. I'm here to say that tonight for Mr. Hubbard, that we'd be happy to go ahead and enter into an agreement for a trail to be extended through there at such time as the county's ready to do it, so.
The additional lot falls into the MXR? I mean,
Yes,
we're in compliance.
it's part of the plat.
I see no drawback to approving this.
I just wonder, would you recommend keeping Scott after this mistake?
Scott is a near perfect employee.
Okay.
But I will emphasize the word near.
Near.
Well, all humans are fallible.
It's the first
As am
mistake
I.
I've ever known him to make, so.
Okay. Thank you,
Shot.
Brad. Is there anybody in the office who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition?
One back here.
Come up, please. And if you would, ma'am, you step up and identify yourself, please.
I'd like to say good evening. Hello, everybody. My name is Mary Rooker. This is my husband, Randy. And we have lived in Davidson County for 36 years. We actually bought our property in 1986, and we live on lot 36 of Freeburg Place. And we received a letter after Thanksgiving, and it said, "You are receiving this notice as an adjoining property owner of that 15-acre tract of land." So the letter explained about the common area that was set aside, the trail. But what I wanted you to know is for many years when we lived here, probably we've been there about 32 years, but for 15 years, of course, the area was heavily wooded. And the owner that at the time that lived above us off of Central Road, John Bodsford, was a farmer. We had thought that our properties actually adjoined each other. We had no idea that there was an easement. Probably around 15 years ago, the woods were cleared out. Maybe it was a 60-foot leeway was cleared out for...
30-foot right-of-way, I think, where the county came through there and just cut a swath to bury the sewer line.
Which was a sewer line, right,
Yeah.
correct, which is sewer line. Ever
Wait
since
for
that
one second.
Oh.
Can you show me where y'all live?
Yeah,
on the
we're
map?
on lot, where's Shover Court?
Did you say 36?
36?
I did
Yeah.
36.
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't
Right.
see it.
Okay. I'm sorry, 30, let's see, I'm in a cul-de-sac.
It's the middle one.
Is that Shover
yeah.
Court right there?
Okay. I
I'm
got
having
you.
trouble seeing.
At
Yeah.
least I know what vicinity you're in, okay.
Okay.
so-
Okay, and I'm right here on this lot right here. And of course, this lot here, it stays flooded now since the county came through there and buried the, sewer lines.
Well,
It changed the topography. It used to hold water for a while, but it somehow over hundreds of years, it would drain out. But when the county came back through there and they buried that sewer line, water still stays there. I don't think I've ever seen it dry out until maybe, 5, 6, 10 years ago when we had such a severe drought. I think that's the only time you could ever walk through that area without getting your feet wet. But, I lost my train of thought.
What I wanted to say too is once the woods had been cleared for the sewer line, I realized probably once or twice a year that the county came through and made sure everything was mowed. But my husband and I actually mowed and maintained it all the way up to the creek where there was a barbed wire fence that the farmer owned on the other side of us. So we've actually maintained the property and kept it mowed all those years. And now at this time, since there's no longer a wooded area, there's no delineation between this common area and ours. It just goes right to the creek. The creek is clear. There's no boundary. There's no border whatsoever. The thing that bothers me about this, and I have no doubt this is going to happen, there's going to be other people besides the residents of Arcadia Ridge that will use this walking trail. And I'm really concerned, and I'm sure other people that are along this too are concerned about vandalism, burglaries, break-ins. We've never had...
You're just going to have people just walking at will, going in my backyard, from my deck, it's approximately, I'd say 70 feet to where they cut that trail. And I'm not saying everybody is bad, but you don't know. In this today in society, you just can't trust people. And I just don't want to have to worry about, hey, is this the guy that's checking things out?
I will say this though, when the sewer was first put in and the wooded area cleared out, we had four-wheelers that came up through there. We'd have people, riding horses and have four-wheelers, and I was told that the four-wheelers pretty much destroyed the property down where the people couldn't maintain it to mow. So there were gates that were put up to keep, four-wheelers and people from walking on properties. And I mean, it's been like this for probably approximately 10 to 15 years. We've never had issues. We've never, had fears of anyone coming onto our property. It's been very private. And as far as I know, the other residents have had no issues. Like I said, we've never had any problems or any worries about break-ins. I mean, if this would be allowed to happen, and I realize there was a mistake that was made on your part, and I'm sorry, but we've had nothing, that's not our fault. We had nothing to do with that. I mean, what would be, to me, fair and responsible if you were to allow this to go through would be for the developer to erect what would be a proper and decent fence. There would have to be a delineation of my property and that property. There should also include a privacy boundary. There should be plantings at a decent height so we would still have our privacy, so people wouldn't be coming into our yard, wouldn't have any idea where it would end. I mean, that's what I think. And another concern I have, which is true, this last hurricane that we had, Hurricane Michael, that came through here. I mean, my husband and I have lived there probably 32 years.
Yeah, right.
And probably within that 32 years, we've seen floods it is prone to flooding probably about 5 times. But this last time, I've never seen so much water. Never. It probably got within 50 feet of our house. Yeah. It was amazing. And now, with the creek there, you can still see on that property where the sewer line is, you can still see the sand that's come up from the sandbars when the creek actually came out. I'm just have concerns about that. And actually, I think the fair thing would be for that walking trail, the sewer line, just to remain as it is. I don't think there needs to be a walking trail. I mean, I've read a lot about our Arcadia Ridge online. I mean, it's going to be a beautiful development. I have no doubt about that. All I want is for the homeowners that are abutting this property, I just would like for us to still have our privacy and for it to be a natural area the way it is. And I think that's just a fair thing.
Yeah, and and another thing too, we have neighbors all along that creek they love guns, and I have nothing against people on guns. But you can't, in my opinion, you can't discharge a gun in a neighborhood. Neighbor got angry with me, and of course, we called the sheriff, and they came out there. He said there's nothing they could do. It got to the point, you know, the neighbors, they were so angry at us. You, on a good day, which really, that's kind of sarcastic, on Fridays and Saturdays, you think you're at the OK Corral. One evening, we were upstairs, was on the computer, and we heard gunshots. This is at night now. We went downstairs, and
That's
doorbell
because the sheriff,
rang.
yeah, the sheriff came to
Doorbell
our
rang,
door.
and the sheriff came to my door. He says, "Have you people heard any gunshots?" I said, "Well, yeah, I hear it all the time." And we went on the front porch. I said, "Look, he's down there right now in that bottom." He said, "Well, no, that's our guy. We're looking for the guy. He hit a house right across the creek." So.
In Ferncliff, yes, he
Yeah,
did.
and the
house
thing
had been
is,
hit.
we've had so much gunshot. I hate to say it. I don't want to say I've become immune to it. We call the sheriff department, and the first thing they say, "What county are you in? Are you in Davidson?" I said, "Yes." And they said, "Well, there's nothing we can do."
And we have had the sheriff, to be fair. I mean, they've been wonderful. The officers that have come over, you know, to speak with the neighbor, if the guns, you know, shots have continued in the evening, they've been really, really good. But they have told us in the past, "I'm sorry, you're a resident of Davidson County, there's not really anything we can do to help you," so.
I think it, in a nutshell, I just don't, you wouldn't want anybody walking in your backyard, not knowing who they are. And,
No, of course not. We've had privacy all these years, we've never had an issue, and like I say, my fear, and it's very well founded, it won't only be the residents of Arcadia Ridge that use this walking trail, it will be other people. It absolutely will. We have been backed up to like a rural area for years.
And we know that things change over time. Like I said, we've been there for 30-something years, and we've seen so many changes. When we first got there, used to be dairy farms. I remember right there on Freeburg Church Road.
There used to be more cows than people.
Yes, they were.
And I know change happens, and we would just, you know, we just want to be fair. Like I said, I know this development is going to be absolutely beautiful.
I just
It'll be
wish that it
state-of-the-art
wouldn't come right there behind us. And I thought I had it bad, but the gentleman that lives right there on the corner of Bethel, they're practically walking on his back door. That's how close
They
that
are.
easement is to his deck.
The house, his house
That's
is
how
even.
far that Hubbard built that house to the creek.
That's right.
So I just wish y'all would, you know, take, you know.
And originally, I mean, it sounded like originally that was not even going to be like that until this came out with the problem with the.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, but even if we didn't do it MXR, if Hubbard Realty owns it, they could still take out that other lot and go back to 20 lots. They could still have that area as a greenway space for their residents, or they could even open it up to the public. And they're even talking about doing a contract with the county that we could do a county greenway in that area. So it doesn't have to, just because we're voting to do it as MXR, it could be done that way even without doing MXR. The property owner has the right to do that. As long as they're not charging for it, because then it becomes commercial.
I just wanted you to
Hear what
our
we had to
concerns.
say. That's our
And
concern.
I understand.
But I
Say we've
understand.
never
And
had issues, and I understand, but we'll
Look,
have,
my family, my parents live up here in Castellum Square, right there in Freeburg Village.
yeah.
I lived there until my parents moved back from the beach and they took the house, bought the house back. But I know that area. I mean, I know we've had issues with four-wheelers there in Freeburg Village. I get that.
Yes.
That's part of living out in the county.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna have some of that. I know we've had some theft issues because of some people that live on the left side of the map. I mean, the sheriff's deputies used to go out there and look for them. Those things do happen, but this particular thing we're voting on tonight, it could happen, that part that you're talking about could happen even if we voted it down, it could still happen. Hubbard Realty, who owns that property, can make that a greenway space right now.
Yeah.
But to me, like I say, our privacy is gone. I think the right thing to do for the developer would be to go ahead and put in, like I say, a decent delineation or a fence, and, you know.
And Brad, and when Brad gets back up to talk, if he does, he may be willing to do that. and we'll talk about that.
Okay, there should be some type of privacy screening, but I do appreciate your time.
Yes, ma'am.
and- and
Okay.
your consideration, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition? Please step up. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Melody Hooker. I live in Wachovia Court. I think our lot back then was 217. It's 271 Wachovia Court. We're the ones that have the ditch, the rocks between, have the
You want
easement.
to point where it is?
Where is it?
If you'll point at that little red button right here, if you look at it, right there.
Okay.
You see that little strip?
Mm-hmm.
That's there's a rock.
There's a 25-foot water easement that was put in initially, that neither us nor our neighbors own.
But we've maintained it for all these
We've
years.
maintained it for,
Sir, could you state your name, please?
Brian, B-R-I. And we think that it goes along with this 15
It
acres.
is part of that.
That's what we were just kind of wondering about that as far as whether that could be.
We've maintained it all these years, could we just take it because it's not been maintained and we would hate for it to ever become part of the trail?
We would.
For people to walk.
Let's you address the board up here, all right? And we'll allow him, he'll have an opportunity to respond to whatever
All
you.
right. But also the same issues that the other couple have had related to just the privacy and the four-wheelers. And I also wondered if the Wachovia Historical Society is aware of this to give their input because there's
The Adam Spock property, I think, is right in here.
No.
To the,
right where
there.
the
Yes.
rock house.
Adam
which is-
Spock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rock house.
The rock.
Yeah, Adam Spock was actually, my stepdad's ancestor.
Yeah, he was a Maverick Moravian.
Uh-huh, started the Freeburg Moravian Church.
So it has a historical significance to the actual community. So just something to consider related to having a trail and making sure that it is protected and also that the residents have some sort of privacy. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Barney W. Hill?
Just a question, you had the staff recommendation, and you had the
Planning board?
statement of consistency for the board, but somehow the planning board recommendation got left out. I know from the minutes it was passed, but
5-0.
what?
5-0.
Right, but that should be in the packet. That document.
So you saying guys should be fired too? Okay.
That a long time ago.
Go back a long
I
way.
know you do.
Yeah, this was in the days of Doug Flick. If, Terramore Development was an echo of Schuler Meats, Hubbard Realty must be an echo of Leo Terra Development. I sort of see things in pairs like that, and it's been being easier to do it lately. I like to make those observations. Just, even they don't matter to anybody else. The common elements are there. A growing demand for new single-family dwellings fueled by the extension of sewer infrastructure to the area, a desire to take advantage of the flexibility of design offered by a change from RA3 to MXR, but still a density of no more than 2 dwelling units per acre because of the location within a restricted watershed, and a connector road providing access to a major arterial thoroughfare. Sort of shaping up as a model of things to come. And all that's missing tonight that was present on October the 23rd is the noise of the NIMBY naysayers. And I want to compliment these people tonight. They didn't fall into that category. And of course, I'm in favor of it. I'm in favor of whatever the applicant wants.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak?
Hello, my name is Dustin Evans. I live in lot 122, which, if you look at the current development that's off the Central Road right now, you look at the east side border, goes straight up and run into my house, east side. Goes straight up. Something like that.
Right. Okay.
So, that's where I live. I've been on that trail quite a many times, actually walking around, with my dog. And, I actually have permission to hunt from Mr. Anderson at the property across the street, or across the creek, rather. So I make regular visits back there. Be that as it may, I do want to say that I understand this is somebody else's property. They have the right to do whatever they want to it. So, they want to put a walking trail back there, et cetera. That's just what I'm going to have to live with. I just want to raise some concerns about, some accountability that's, just made light of tonight, probably by the planning, guy, that things weren't, checked properly. So I'm just hoping y'all would take that in consideration as to why we must rezone this, right? Furthermore, I believe in the county ordinances, it says that there's supposed to be a master plan submitted, if there's a, mixed-use district, zoning request. I'm just curious if that has been done already, right? I don't know if y'all know that or not.
Yes, sir.
So, if y'all would take the time and consider if it's absolutely necessary, right? Because I think it would set an odd precedent. There's a possibility there, as, I think Mr. Hill noted, that that's supposed to be done with access to a major thoroughfare. So I suppose the neighborhood is being developed across the creek there, count as that if it and the other property were rezoned as MXR. So I think there's a potential can of worms that could be open. I think Mr. Crotts, your formula realtor, I believe.
Myself and Commissioner Baird are both realtors.
Okay, so y'all are familiar with different zoning aspects and stuff, and just a little side note, the whole Heggie Road rezoning, my parents are actually down the road from that, so got to hear a little bit about that whole situation.
Yeah, and what you're talking about there, do understand the MXR used to be, what was it, PH or?
PDH, Plan Development.
So that area and the one, Freeburg Village, are both already zoned that way. So it's contiguous, it's next door to what is already basically MXR. So legally, it already has ground, it could stand ground in court if we denied the request and they took it to court. Okay, so to look at something and rezone it, and I know that we are looking at it because there was a mistake, and the mistake was because of the watershed part of it, okay, which was just a complete oversight, and first time Scott's ever made a mistake in all of his 23 years on this earth.
And I agree, I make mistakes myself.
Yeah, so I think those are things that we have looked at on that. I know, I've talked to staff about it. So but they did look at adding the 15 acres, which they could already do something with, and they said, hey, we can just add this to it and make it MXR, so, yeah.
Now, one thing I have thought about, and, my neighbors would agree, as they've been there since the 90s, and they saw the other neighborhood get put up. If you look at the floodplain picture later on, where the townhome nodule is there, that was actually built up with just loads and loads of dirt to bring it up out of that floodplain. Some of it still is, but, what's to say that any of that could, not happen in the future if it's zoned as such, correct? Which, would kind of ruin my serenity that I've worked hard to, achieve. I joined the United States Navy right out of high school, North Davidson High. Went traveling after that for a company that was out of Greensboro. Finally came home, got married, settled down, had a kid. So now when I look out on my back deck, right, all I see is trees, nice, quiet, peaceful. So I would just hope that I don't wind up looking at somebody's back window, sitting there on my back deck. That's all. So.
Yeah, that particular area, I don't think you're gonna have a problem with that.
I don't think so either.
But, yeah. And plus you've already got the sewer lines in there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? If not, Mr. Coe, you got
Scott, when you come back up, real quick, when they were talking about the easement between, the property there, next to Friedberg Village, is that easement county owned?
It is not county owned. It is a part of this property. What they could do is if they wanted to work out an agreement with, Hubbard of purchasing that strip, Hubbard has already attached on the master plan, which, let me see if I can get to it, right there. He's already given his future homeowners access to the property, to the open space. So the elimination of that's no longer necessary. So if they wanted to work out an agreement where that stem was sold, we would treat it as just a recombination, this would be left intact.
Is there an easement over here where the other property that they were talking about had been flooding?
I'm unaware of any other easement.
So the county wouldn't have any, okay. That's what I just wanted to check on that.
No, and I wanted to respond. I certainly understand the concerns and the fears anytime you get a letter from the county stating that there's a development coming on. And we tried to word our second letter to these 51 property owners to let them know that common area is treated a little differently, that this can never be developed. No homes can be built on this 15 acres. And I'm afraid that with our discussion of a possible walking trail, there is no walking trail. There is no walking trail proposed. The site plan, that's the 15 acres, there is no walking trail at all. This is just vacant property. The purpose of it is to be left entirely as it is today. And if there ever was a walking trail in the future, it would have to be an agreement that the homeowners association would have to feel comfortable with. It's their own liability if they feel that they can enter into an agreement, have their own walking trail just for their 21 residents, or if they wanted to enter into an agreement with the county, that's at that point they could, but there is no walking trail proposed on this development plan. And talking with the developer, he certainly has no plans of building one, and from what he is, the type of homes that are here, I doubt if they will build one, but they have the right to do it once they take ownership. But there is nothing on the master plan now showing any kind of disturbance, walking trail, or anything else along that line. And the last thing I'll show before I turn it over to Brad is, I think the original, you'll see that there's been quite a bit of discussion about water. Certainly understandable. These folks have really got it. When they purchased their property 30-some years ago, it's now in a floodplain designated by FEMA, so that they certainly do see a lot of water. Can't do much about that. So I feel for them on that.
That floodplain probably expanded as a result of the development in the area over the years due to runoff.
I think Scott explained it real well. He,
The only thing I have to add is I will be happy to pass along to Mr. Godfrey on behalf of Hubbard Realty that these folks up here are interested in purchasing that strip before he signs all of the HOA docs and everything. And, you know, in other words, he'll control the HOA until a sufficient number of lots are sold. I'll pass their information to him and let them try to work something out that they can take title to this, which effectively closes access from anywhere to this property, anywhere other than down the sewer outfall, which was constructed from interior to subdivision. These are $350,000, $400,000 homes, roughly, like that's gonna be built in here. That's about
The
it.
big problem tonight is that really, we don't really have that problem. The main problem is the people that complained didn't realize that their neighbor wasn't bumping up against them, that there's another property owner between them. That's the only problem.
Like many properties like this, people make assumptions about it,
Right.
people trespass upon it. One people stood up here tonight and said, I regularly trespass upon it and I cross it to get the land that I hunt on. This is what's done with land that's not current. You caught that, didn't you? You're shaking your head, yes? Yeah.
But that's just what you do.
That's what people do.
So
If nobody's out there saying keep off of it, then I'm gonna get on it. I deal with it every week of my life as a surveyor, marking lines for people, and trespassing. So that's what people do. And yes, when we build sewer outfalls, people buy four-wheelers and they think every sewer outfall in the state belongs to them for free ride on, and they tear them up and that's something we have to deal with when we build sewer outfalls. Believe me, I've sat at home, tried to write ordinances that I wanted to bring down here and submit to you guys about four-wheelers. I mean, you can't imagine what I have to deal with, you know. But that's just life. That's life as we live it here in the great state of North Carolina and the great county of Davidson. But no, the developer's not gonna build a walking trail. You know, the opportunity, as I stated, is there if the county ever partners and wants to build one. The opportunity is there because it belongs to an HOA to extend and have a greenway. That's what I was intending to say. If I miscommunicated, I apologize to the board and to the audience.
All right. I got one simple question. That right-of-way that you was talking about, I heard him say that was a water right-of-way.
It's fee simple property. What's there?
So there's no water line in there now? I mean.
Water line, I think they mean that it's where storm drainage runs, where storm water flows down through there. Yeah. You know, I think that's what they mean. It's, you know, and I'll certainly put Mr. Godfrey in touch with them. Right. If he wants to give them title to that, they can work that out. As a developer, we have no use for it whatsoever.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Okay. Brad, one thing real quick, the folks sitting back here that was concerned about the trees being removed, are y'all planning to do anything at all?
No, we're planning no activity whatsoever. We're just gonna let it be common open space. You know, the county can continue to operate and maintain its sewer outfall down through there. We've done nothing except connect to the sewer, in this area right here. We punch through the trees with sewer outfall to connect to your outfall, and that's it. We have no planned activity at all in that common open space.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Corn, what is staff recommendation on that?
I won't belabor the fact, but it's already been pointed out that this seems to be reasonable and consistent with the overall comprehensive plan of the area. Over the last 30 years, ever since 1986, I've seen this area develop over time, and it has about 3 other plan developments, MXR districts already in the area. It has public water and sewer infrastructure to support this type of development, and Central Road is designated as a collector road, so all of the and it meets the water supply watershed protection ordinance as well, so it meets all the specifications and standards that we would expect with an MXR district, so we would recommend approval.
Okay, any further discussion by the board?
No.
If not, I declare the public hearing closed. So, all facts in consideration, can I have a motion second to either approve or deny this rezoning request and to adopt the resolution on
Motion.
of consistency?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we've got a motion from Commissioner Crotts. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a second from Commissioner Truitt.
sign this next one.
Can we take like a 5-10 minutes?
Yes.
Motion carried 7-0.
We don't have one more, and it won't take but a minute.
We got closed session. I'm sorry, Don.
All right, these lawyers have been sitting here all night.
Did you see my plaque?
I think.
Next order of business is, special use permit by Clarksbury Solar LLC in Conrad Hill Township. I declare the public hearing open. Guy, if
Okay.
you'll read the application.
Sure. You have a request tonight by Clarksbury Solar LLC for a special use permit, Class A, to construct and operate a solar farm in an RA3 rural agricultural district. The property is located on the north side of East US Highway 64, approximately 400 feet east of the Clarksbury Church Road intersection. The property is identified as Conrad Hill Township, tax map 28, lot 24, and contains 49.2 acres, more or less. Mr. Chairman, this is a public, quasi judicial proceeding, so we'll need to swear in the folks who want to speak in favor or in opposition to the request, and we can do that at the present time.
Okay. Anyone wish to speak in favor of or in opposition to, please come forward to be sworn in. Madam Clerk, if you'll do the swearing in.
Underneath you if you can't reach. Left hand on the Bible, raise your right. Do you swear that the testimony you shall give to the board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Hill, you affirm that the testimony you are about to give, if any, will be the truth and nothing but the truth, but there is only one who can know the whole truth. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Ingram. See you here.
Yeah, Attorney Mike Fox is actually representing the applicants tonight.
Okay.
And we do have, I think, Martha Yance, who is the property owner. And what this is actually a lease agreement between the Clarksbury Solar Group and Ms. Yance, who is the property owner.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need to explain the request any further?
Yes, he's going to present the application.
Good evening, members of the Board of Commissioners and Chairman. My name is Mike Fox. I'm an attorney with offices at 100 North Green Street in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm here tonight representing the applicant. We're here before you to seek your approval for a special use permit for a solar farm. I have several folks with me here tonight who can provide the information required by your ordinance for you to make the findings of fact that you need to make. With me, first of all, is Harrison Cole from Cypress Creek. Harrison, identify yourself or raise your hand. Harrison is a representative of the company that will develop this solar farm, and Harrison can explain the site plan, buffering, setbacks, anything like that you may be interested in. I have Chris Sandifer. Chris, if you'd raise your hand. Chris is an engineer licensed in North Carolina and several other states, who's been a long career with Duke Energy. And Chris is here tonight as an independent expert, and we've asked him to come and testify on the safety of solar farms, and he'll give you his opinion on that. Nick Kirkland is here. Nick, if you'd raise your hand. Nick is with Kirkland Appraisals, and we've asked them to present an appraisal for us with the question to be answered as, will this solar farm as developed preserve or maintain the value of the adjoining property? And so Nick is here ready to present that appraisal to you. And I can answer any questions that you may have about the process itself, any of the legal issues or any of the ramifications of, tax implications, anything like that. I know your board has heard solar before, so we want to be considerate of your time. We're happy to answer any questions you may have, or if there are any other members of the public here who have questions, we can come back up and answer those as directed. But we also want to be efficient and give you all the information you need, however much that is, for you to consider this. Mr. Chairman, I have copies of the appraisal report from Kirkland Appraisals, if I may approach to hand those out.
Yeah.
We got one, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
If it suits the board, what I'd like to do is just ask my folks to come up and very briefly, introduce themselves, give you their summary, and if you have, questions, they're happy to answer them. Would that be okay, Mr. Chairman?
That'd be fine.
All right, Chris, why don't we start with you?
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman and members of the council. Thank you for allowing us to present to you today. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. My name is Chris Sandifer. I live at 3118 Green Road in Spring Hope, North Carolina. I am a registered engineer, state of North Carolina, and I'm also a licensed contractor with a limited classification. I serve on the Nash County Planning Board, and I have about 100 acres of farmland under panel already, and then looking to increase that for my children, their children, as for part of my retirement as well. So just a little bit of my background. The solar equipment that's proposed here, the solar equipment I have on my farm is tried and true technology. It's been around for some pieces of it. The panels have been 50 years old. The metal piles they use in the ground are 150-year-old technology. It's nothing unusual about this that not 2,000 megawatts have already been installed in North Carolina, so it's in line with that. So, in my professional opinion, that the proposal project will not materially endanger the public health or safety if located and installed according to the plans that have been presented to you. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Is there, and you have to educate me, okay?
Okay.
On some of this. I've looked at some of it and heard some, but do you have to have any hazardous material handling, permitting that goes along with the solar farm as far as disposal of materials that wear out or need to be replaced? Is there a certain, hazardous material permitting requirement that you have to go by for disposal of any of those?
Required. They have been approved by the EPA. You would be crazy to do this. It'd be like throwing copper wire into the landfill. Nobody would do that because it's worth a lot more resalvaged or salvaged or reused than it would be to throw it in the landfill. But they have been approved to be ground up and crushed and put in a landfill, in a what's called a Class 3 landfill, which is where you put normal city waste and that type of stuff.
Okay. Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I had one, if I could ask.
Okay.
Can you, tell us how many, megawatts this will generate?
It's 5. I think it's listed as 4.99 in the queue, but it's 5 megawatts.
And the reason I wanted to ask him that is the large solar farm that Sun Edison put in a few years back, that was designed between 10 and 20 megawatts. So this is a much smaller solar farm.
Approximately how many houses would that furnish power to?
I normally figure around 650, 750 per megawatt. So this is a 5 megawatt. So it depends on how you do it. You know, you got big houses, little houses, you know, whether you gas heat, electric heat, you know, those types of things. But I typically figure around 750 houses per megawatt. So.
And how many people would it employ? How many people does it employ? 1, 2, 3?
It depends on how fast they build it for the construction.
After construction.
But there's very little, there's not gonna be anybody on site permanently. There'll be very little traffic. There'll be some maintenance probably performed, maybe on once or twice a month, depending on the season, if you got to cut grass or something like that. And then someone will probably go out there, just check on the panels, check on the switchgear, just do a visual inspection, make sure the fences haven't been compromised or the things that there's not going to be a permanent employee on the site. It'll generate no noise, no smell, no traffic. It doesn't require water, it doesn't require sewer. It's it's a very benign use of the land.
And you, contract with Duke Power to sell the power generated to
That is
to
correct.
them, and then they disperse at their will, as ever how they would choose.
It goes on their grid and displaces a coal plant somewhere. So the 5 megawatts that's produced at this facility would just be 5 megawatts less that would be produced at a non-renewable, facility.
Okay.
Do you know what the setback is off of the property lines?
I'm gonna defer to Harrison on that.
Yeah, if we can, we get Mr. Cole up here if you'd like, if you're, any more questions for Mr. Sanderson?
When we ask the question, you call on your expert that you think it best fixed. I'll defer to you,
I'll hold
sir.
free mic here. So my name is Harrison Cole. My work address is 130 Robert Street in Asheville, North Carolina. I'm here representing Clarksbury and our parent company, Cypress Creek Renewables. We also have our mainship office in Durham, North Carolina, where we do have a state-of-the-art operations and maintenance facility, and we can control and monitor all of our solar farms throughout the entire country. At this facility, it's FERC regulated, and it's a brand new state-of-the-art facility. But back to the original question. Off the setbacks, Guy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but off the adjacent properties that are zoned residential, I believe it is a 20 or 30 foot setback.
It's actually, can be a 10-foot, I believe. Is that right, Lee?
But we're here to, work with our neighbors and be friendly neighbors, because this is a long-term project, and we want to, remain intact with the current use, which is, the residential use.
We're gonna look.
Yeah. So, right here, we have, on the sides that are zoned, residential, we do have 15-foot setbacks, and so this will be on the east and the west side of the project. And then on the front, where it adjoins US Highway 64, we have 30-foot setback. And within these setbacks, we will be having a vegetative buffer, and that includes, I think we said, 2 rows of 6 evergreen trees with every 100 linear feet. And so there'll be 2 rows of that are staggered, and so that way it helps to reduce the visual impact of the site.
Have you figured into your plans the future development of 64 is gonna be a 4-lane? Is 30 foot gonna get where you need to be when DOT comes rolling through there?
So we have not contacted DOT yet. What we'll do is we have our civil engineers design the driveway permit for them, and then they'll contact the representative DOT office and talk to them about any requirements, any comments they have, and then we talk to them and adhere to their recommendations essentially. So they'll address that when it comes to that.
So that would be the same thing with your erosion control permits?
Correct, except through the DEQ, that's right.
Okay.
All of those will have to be secure before we allow construction to move forward.
Set me up, that's 64 at the bottom,
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And that's what, Clarksburg?
Yes.
Clarksburg's down the bottom.
Okay.
Clarksbury's right there, Commissioner Troy, 64's here.
You
That's
talking
a
about
power right of way.
Yeah.
That's a power easement and a power line, and this is a larger power line.
Okay.
The old Cunningham brick property, mining property's right just north of that, right there.
Directly across the road is the little flea market that was rezoned highway commercial.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I know where it's at now.
Okay, anybody have any further questions, John?
I've got one question. I know for several years the legislature was doing a pretty significant incentive plan for people on solar projects. Is this receiving state incentives?
It receives state tax incentives. I'll let Mike handle that, but.
Yeah, it would receive some, but it's not what it initially was. Some of that sunsetted with the legislature. They still do have an 80% rebate on the personal property. They were getting other incentives for the investment, but really what they have now is the personal property. There are some federal incentives as well, but those are phasing out. Generally, I think the policy aspect was it was felt that when the industry was first growing, it needed that to be able to take root. And now that it has taken root, and also the cost of the materials have come down, the panels are less expensive than they used to be, then it's able to go on its own without the incentives. So
I see. I know that you don't anticipate this happening, but if something were to happen and the solar company your clients are associated with would go out of business, who's responsible for removing all the solar panels off the property?
Well, they are. They have a provision in their lease. So, if say Cypress Creek were to go out of business for some reason, the real answer to that is somebody's gonna step in and purchase this property, because once you get it built, it's just sitting there making money. Because as long as the sun shines, it's gonna generate electricity, which you have a guaranteed contract with Duke Energy to buy. So it's an asset that nobody's gonna walk away from, even if the corporate ownership were to change. I think that's perhaps the best assurance that you can have.
And that's what happened with SunEdison, and they are no longer the original owners, so they went out of business, and another company picked it up.
Mr. Commissioner, the answer to your question is they want to how it affects them, and your answer is correct. From my understanding, the property, not the land, but the equipment, will have the 80% rebate on the local property tax. Right. That affects our revenue stream. Right. The federal and state do not. So that's the answer you're looking for.
What is the value of the personal property on a project this size?
Harrison, what's the investment gonna be? I mean, it's generally on a 5 megawatt.
$8 to $10 million, just depending on what kind of site work you have to do mostly. That's gonna be the main driver.
I'm sorry, how much?
$8 to $10 million. So it's the equivalent, and as you understand, you get your personal property is taxed at the same rate as real property. And so, it would be the equivalent of somebody, building a $10 million building and having that on the tax rolls. Obviously, you would only get 20% of it, and that like any other piece of personal property, it eventually depreciates. The other thing that happens, though, a benefit that you get tax-wise is right now that property is agricultural, and it's in the deferred program, so it'll come out of that. So you'll get 3 years of back taxes on, whatever there are 4, 5.
Jerry's not here, but I'm sure it goes back 5 years.
Okay, all right, well, that's even better for you. You'll get the back taxes that come back. And I would suspect that, your county tax assessor, the next time they look, when they look at the property, the change from agricultural to more of an industrial use, it'll probably be valued, at a higher value, so you'll get the benefit of that as well. So right now it's sitting there in a agricultural exemption, and you're getting a fraction of what it will be going forward. So that is another benefit aside from the personal property.
Correct. How
many years?
Yeah, for the 80% that the rebate on the local property tax, how many years is that?
It's ongoing. Like I say, the actual land is valued at full value, and we get taxed off that. It's just the equipment piece, and plus, like you said, the equipment will depreciate. Now, I'm sure they may reinvest money, but that will continue to depreciate. But that part will stay at unless the legislature changes something, right, will stay at the 80%.
And that's not an uncommon thing. And there are other industries, like for many years, I was in the textile industry for a while, and for many years, textile equipment got a substantial break, and other industries have as well.
There was a big stink over the film industry, that they had that issue.
Yeah.
So, off the top, $10 million in our property tax, is $54,000 a year, 80%, reduction of that, so you're $10,000, dollars. So just so everybody knows.
What is your depreciation schedule on this equipment, just from my own knowledge? How long do you?
Do you know that, Harrison?
Should be 30
I believe it's regulated by the IRS, but I don't have those numbers with me right now.
Probably like a 10-year depreciation, or longer than that?
I would say it's about 10 to 15 years, but I'm not sure on the exact number.
Is it a Schedule T under the Department of Revenue Property Tax, which would be, 15 years?
Sorry?
Does that sound correct, 15 years?
That sounds correct, but I can't confirm if that's, absolutely correct or not.
That would be what I would guess, yeah.
But you're not replacing them in 15 years.
No, you would replace, if you had a problem with one, you would replace that out, but, the anticipated life is 30-plus years. I mean, it's conceivable that technology could change and it could make sense for them to come in and swap them out because the technology is so much better, they get a higher percentage of return, that kind of thing, but the plan is to leave them in place.
I'm good.
Are those gonna be stationary panels, or are they gonna be,
They're fixed, yes, stationary.
They're fixed panels?
Yeah, there are a type that will rotate to follow the sun, but this is not that type.
Yeah, a little bit more expensive of those kind.
Well, and it's also very site-specific sometimes as to whether you put those in or not.
Mm.
Yeah, so.
Okay, any other questions by the board for these gentlemen?
I have Mr. Kirkland who, can just come up and, give his credentials, and, I'd ask that you, add his appraisal into the record if you'd like to do that way.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nick Kirkland. My address is 901 Okinichi Drive in Fuquay-Varina, North Carolina. I've worked at Kirkland Appraisals for several years now, and I've spent those years gathering data and researching solar farms primarily. We've looked at over 500 across the country. Over 300 of those have been in North Carolina. The overwhelming majority of the solar farms that we have looked at are in agricultural and residential areas like this one. We've looked at a local summary of solar farms in our database from Davidson County and the surrounding counties. The combined agricultural and residential median adjoining use rate for this local summary is 75%. What that means is for any given solar farm in the local area, the most common adjoining uses are agricultural and residential. Solar farms are typically found in places such as this one where most of the adjoining uses are agricultural and residential. In my professional opinion, the proposed solar farm is a harmonious use in its location. Matched pair or paired sales analysis is a methodology that is supported by the Appraisal Institute and is outlined in detail in the Appraisal Institute textbook, Real Estate Damages, which is written by Randall Bell. In short, this involves comparing a sale that occurred adjacent to a solar farm with a similar property that sold that was not adjacent to a solar farm in order to measure for any difference. We have over 20 matched pairs, which all show no impact to adjoining agricultural and residential property values. 10 matched pairs are included within this impact study. It's my professional opinion that the proposed solar farm will not impact adjoining property values. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, anybody have any other questions for him? Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you very much, and, in conclusion, I'd like to, note that I believe we've presented testimony sufficient to meet the requirements of your ordinance, and so would ask for your approval. And as a final note, I know you have 2 members who are departing. Thank you for your service. I know I've served, like, Mr. Sandifer, I've served on boards before and currently serve on other boards. As a matter of fact, I serve on 2 boards with 2 of your members. And so I know the times that it takes away from your family. And when they say public service, it truly is an understatement for what that is. So thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of or in opposition that hasn't already spoken? Please step up. Okay. Mr. Corner, what is staff recommendation?
Surely,
Wait a minute, so we got Barney, I'm sorry, Barney. Barney W. Hill. My apologies, Barney.
We're, the template for this would be the 64 solar farm that you did back in, I believe, June. And that page in the ordinance, it's a half a page in the ordinance, but it generates all this tons of material. I think it needs to be rewritten so that the applicant better knows what's expected of him, and he doesn't have to waste so much effort. You have your four general standards and your ever how you want to count it, your probably you count it four special standards for this one, and then your so-called submittals. But I see this as so ridiculous that it is so benign and it is so passive and unthreatening that it's ridiculous to subject it to this much scrutiny, and it would be better off if you had a more streamlined process for it, because it seems there are going to be more and more of them. I'm of course in favor of it, but I don't believe you're going to get anybody much off of what I am. Seems that the application is overkill. You've got the appraisal company, and you've got this other company that before that was what is it, Cypress is in this one, but before that was actually put on the your standard application. That I commend the folks for their diligence and their conscientiousness, but I think it ought to be an easier way of doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Anyone else? Okay. What is staff recommendation?
Certainly, for the record, the planning board voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the request as it was presented. We concur that substantial evidence has been entered into the record as part of the application or through testimony. Tonight, all four findings of fact can be met, and I also feel like that all of the specific standards that are required under the ordinance have been satisfied, so at this time we would recommend approval. They, of course, will be working with DOT to get their commercial driveway permit, and they'll be getting their essential permits from the state Department of Environmental Quality for erosion, so we recommend approval.
Okay. If there's no further discussion by the board?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve
Let me declare the public hearing closed. Mr. Commissioner Jarvis?
Make a motion, we approve the request. I believe that all four findings in fact have been met, and I'd like to approve.
Okay, motion by Commissioner, Jarvis. Got a second, Commissioner Troy. Cast your vote.
All of the votes are in. And my vote is in. And it passes 7-0.
Okay. It was a little funny up there.
Might go backwards.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Your motion passed.
We'll be sending you an order.
Okay, can I have a motion and a second to go into closed session?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to
Yes.
come back in order?
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, there were three matters to be considered by the board under personnel, and there was one matter for attorney-client. All of those were for informational purposes. There was no formal action taken by the board. Thank you.
Okay, motion adjourned.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, aye?
All opposed?